Welcome to Lesson 1, Overview of Core Concepts, the foundation of your TOGAF 10 learning journey. In this session, you'll clearly understand what the TOGAF Standard, 10th edition is, how it's organized, and why it's globally recognized as the benchmark for enterprise architecture. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to explain how TOGAF 10 is structured into fundamental content and series guides, define the 6 core components of the framework: ADM, architecture content, governance, enterprise continuum, architecture repository, and architecture capability, and describe how they work together. Identify and describe the 4 BDAT domains: business, data, application, and technology. And finally, summarize what changed in TOGAF 10 compared with earlier versions. Let's begin by understanding exactly what the TOGAF Standard 10th edition is. What is the TOGAF Standard 10th edition? TOGAF is a proven enterprise architecture methodology and framework used worldwide to help organizations design and govern complex transformation programs. The 10th edition has been modernized and modularized to make adoption easier and more agile. It is divided into 2 major parts: TOGAF Fundamental Content, which forms the essential scaffolding, the core concepts, the ADM method, and standard techniques, and the TOGAF Series Guides, which are practical, how-to publications covering specific topics like agile enterprise architecture, digital transformation, or security. For the foundation exam, Part 1, you are tested on your understanding and recall of these definitions, structures, and relationships, not on tailoring or deep implementation. The core concept map, how the pieces connect. Here's the mental model you should visualize whenever you think of TOGAF. At the center is the ADM, the Architecture Development Method. This is the methodological engine that drives what we produce and govern throughout the architecture lifecycle. Surrounding it are 5 other key concepts: the Architecture Content Framework, which defines what we produce, our deliverables, artifacts, and building blocks. It also includes views, viewpoints, and the content meta model. Architecture Governance, which controls and assures architecture through boards, contracts, and compliance processes. The Architecture Repository, which is the logical store for architecture assets, standards, and reference models. The Enterprise Continuum, a conceptual model that lets us classify assets from generic to organization-specific, linking the architecture continuum with the solutions continuum. And finally, the Architecture Capability, which represents the people, processes, and organizational structures required to run enterprise architecture as a function. Each part feeds into the other, forming a complete ecosystem of method, content, governance, and capability. BDAT, the 4 architecture domains. TOGAF defines 4 primary architecture domains, together called BDAT. Business architecture captures the organization's strategy, capabilities, value streams, and processes that drive change. Data architecture defines how data entities and relationships are structured and governed across the enterprise. Application architecture describes applications and services and how they interact to support business operations. Technology architecture outlines the platforms, infrastructure, and networks that host and run those applications and data flows. Think of BDAT as layers of a pyramid. Business drives data. Data feeds applications. Applications run on technology. Each domain is vital for an integrated architecture view. ADM at a glance, how we do architecture. Now let's look at how architecture is developed using the ADM lifecycle. It starts with the preliminary phase, where we scope the EA practice, set principles, and establish governance structures and tools. Phase A, architecture vision. We define the target vision and obtain stakeholder buy-in and sponsorship. Phase B, business architecture. We develop the baseline and target business architectures, focusing on capabilities and value streams. Phase C, information systems architecture. We address data and application architectures to ensure information and systems support those capabilities. Phase D, technology architecture. We design the target infrastructure and technical platforms. Phase E, opportunities and solutions. We identify work packages and transition architectures that move us toward the target state. Phase F, migration planning. We sequence projects and prepare the roadmap and dependencies. Phase G, implementation governance. We make sure delivery aligns with architecture requirements. Phase H, architecture change management. we govern drift and manage change requests. In the center, requirements management acts as a continuous control loop, feeding and being fed by every phase. For the foundation exam, remember you must recognize each phase's objectives, inputs, outputs, and relationships, not the detailed activities. Architecture content, deliverables, artifacts, building blocks. The TOGAF content framework defines 3 core elements of output. A deliverable is a formally reviewed and approved work product. For example, the architecture definition document. An artifact is a specific piece within a deliverable, such as a catalog, matrix, or diagram. A building block is a reusable component of architecture capability. We classify them as ABB, architecture building blocks, logical specifications, and SBB, solution building blocks, realizations. The architecture definition document acts as the main container that consolidates artifacts for baseline, target, and transition states. The enterprise continuum and the architecture repository work together to support reuse and traceability. The continuum is a conceptual classification of architectural assets, ranging from generic reference architectures to organization-specific solutions. It includes the architecture continuum and the solutions continuum. The repository is the physical store of those assets, holding standards information, reference libraries, and approved deliverables like the governance log. Together, they form the knowledge base of the enterprise architecture function. Architecture governance and capability architecture. Governance defines the policies, processes, and compliance mechanisms that assure architectural integrity. It is typically overseen by an architecture board and formalized through architecture contracts. Architecture capability focuses on the skills, roles, and operating model required to manage enterprise architecture as a sustainable function. As capability matures, organizations deliver architecture outcomes more consistently and with higher value. What's different in TOGAF 10? TOGAF 10 is significantly different from version 9.2. It is modular and configurable, split into fundamental content and series guides, allowing organizations to adopt what they need more quickly. The new edition adds clearer how-to guidance and stronger connections to the Open Group's broader portfolio of standards, making TOGAF 10 far more practical and adaptive to modern digital enterprises. Foundation exam lens. From the exam perspective, focus on recognizing and classifying concepts. Know that the ADM is the method and that requirements management is continuous. Understand the difference between a deliverable, an artifact, and a building block, and between ABB and SBB. Be able to differentiate the enterprise continuum, conceptual, from the repository, physical store. And be familiar with the 4 BDAT domains and their scope. You've now completed Lesson 1, Overview of Core Concepts. We explored the structure of the TOGAF Standard 10th edition, understood how its core components fit together, and reviewed the ADM, the BDAT domains, and key exam concepts. In our next lesson, we'll dive into definition of enterprise, where we clarify how TOGAF defines an enterprise, architecture scope, and stakeholder views. Thank you for learning with KRTI. I'm Shivani Kumar, and I look forward to guiding you through the next chapter of your TOGAF Foundation journey.